Now, today's guests, I'm particularly excited by, the Seekers.
We're all excited.
I mean, the biggest bands in Australian history, I guess, what? In Excess, Bee Gees.
Well, Bee Gees, certainly. I mean, those bandmen at
AC/DC.
work, they had overseas hits. The Seekers, I think, trumped them all. I mean, they knocked the Beatles, the Rolling Stones off the charts. Number one hits, Georgie Girl, they were the toast of London, 64, incredible story. And I got to say, the feeling, I've told a few people over the last few days, I'm doing the conversation now, and the Seekers. Oh my God.
Exactly.
And I went to there was a launch yesterday in the foyer of Hamer Hall, launching the album and they've got an incredible tour coming up next year. And there was a real sense of excitement in this, just a little press launch. It was quite simple, but you could tell this incredible feeling and this incredible love for this band that charmed us all. I mean, 200,000 people at the Myer Music Bowl?
Yeah, what year was that? I was trying to remember yesterday. Was it 66?
It
65?
was around about 68.
68.
Perhaps 67, we'll check. I think it was just before Judith left. I mean, it's a really rich story, She left and fans were upset and
then they kind of got back
together. And
now they're still together 50 years on, which in itself is unique, isn't it? Because
yes. You look at the Rolling Stones.
The Beatles.
Well, the Beatles, obviously, there's very little chance of them reforming. Also, the Rolling Stones have just done, I think, 2 shows in London. I think they're about to do a couple of shows in Brooklyn or New Jersey, and they're celebrating 50 years. But
a lot of lineup changes.
There's no Brian Jones. Mick Taylor gets up for one song. Bill Wyman gets up for one song. It's vastly different.
So it's an achievement, isn't it?
It's a remarkable
still
thing.
Making great music 50 years on. So we'll be speaking to them in just a moment. We've just
All
got,
4 of
if
them.
we can find enough chairs, Brian.
Yes, it's squashed in
You
here.
or I might be standing for the remainder of the program.
I'm coming over next to you, I believe.
You might have to be on my lap.
Yeah.
On 774 ABC Melbourne.
And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome them to the studio. Judith Durham, Keith Potka, Bruce Woodley, Athol Guy. It's an honour and a great pleasure to have you here. Congratulations on your 50th anniversary.
Well,
thank you, Bruce.
Thank
you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you,
Bruce. And Brian Curtis, of course.
I'll be Brian.
Yeah,
you'll be Brian. We'll call you Bruce as well, I think.
Yeah, Bruce.
And I'll just begin. How did the celebration go yesterday? And was it 50 years of the first meeting, Athol, between you and Judith, or
Absolutely.
the first gig?
No, both.
Right.
In a sense, I'd spoken to Judith on the phone. We were looking for a girl to join the 3 of us. The original Seekers were 4 boys. And our other mate, who sang a lovely tenor lead, opted out to go and get married, which was fair enough. And we played along for a while, and we wanted a really strong, lovely female lead for our, lovely rough harmonies, playing all the folky, bluegrassy stuff we played. And Judith, I knew, was a beautiful jazz singer around Melbourne. I'd spoken to her sister Beverly at one stage, and I said, I want to come in here and Judith sing, because we were looking for a girl. Judith didn't know that, but she turned up at Joe Walter Thompson, where I was working as a young account exec. And this little face one day poked its head around the corner and said, "Oh, hello, you're Athol Guy?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I'm Judy Durham. You were going to come and hear me sing." And I said, "Oh, well, come and sing with us tonight."
And that was at the Treble Clef?
At the Treble Clef. And that was 50 years ago, sort of yesterday.
Yeah, I think God knew that I probably wouldn't have gone. I would have been too nervous to go along if I'd known they were looking for a girl in the group. That's the joke. I went along to have a bit of fun, not knowing that they were secretly auditioning me. So it was really quite a surprise when they said, "Come along next Monday night as well," and next Monday night. So I just kept going along, not knowing that apparently I'd passed the audition. So I was already in the group, so to speak.
And you knew instantly that this was just a fantastic chemistry?
Yeah.
I think not only did we hear it and know it, but I mean the reaction of people that were listening to it was obviously very strong, and that gave us a lot of confidence to to go.
And this is
forward
a
with it.
tiny little club.
It's a tiny little
Tell
place.
us about this club. It's the Treble
It
Clef.
wasn't a club.
was.
It wasn't a club.
Coffee
It
shop.
was,
Coffee
it was
shop.
literally
Coffee
a
lounge.
coffee shop, and they served what was laughingly called coffee in those days,
And
and a
raisin
very
toast.
bad bowl of spaghetti
Yes.
bolognese.
But they used to have meals, like they had steak
they had
and
meals.
stuff.
They had meals,
Yeah.
but we actually got paid in food and coffee, and it was fun to do on Monday night. We had nothing much else to do. I used to pick Judith up from
Yes, it was very nice of
Baldwin,
Bruce.
was it?
Yes.
It was Baldwin,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Oh,
I
yes.
was the lift, and off
Chauffeur,
we'd go.
yeah.
We did that for quite a while, and
And what would you do? 2 sets?
I don't even remember. We just sort of never stopped, really, did we?
Oh, we
did
must
we?
have done sets. No, I suppose
do
we
a set?
did. Because we were quite
Probably.
comfortable. The three of us, Keith and Bruce and I, was sitting, and Athel stood behind with the bass.
Yes.
So it was very low key.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we didn't have a microphone till a little
No,
later.
no. We just sit there and blaze away. It was
All
until
acoustic.
somebody asked us
Yeah.
to stop.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't remember that we had a massive repertoire, but each of us knew stuff.
We mixed
songs,
it all
and
up
we
as
go, what
went.
about this
what do you
one?
Know,
and
what do you know? What
away
key
you
goes
go.
to start off,
What
and we'll
key?
all join in.
Yeah.
And can you remember any of those songs? I imagine there was perhaps This Train or
That's right.
Lemon
yeah.
Tree.
And That Train. We did lots of train songs. But
Freight
no,
train.
after Freight Train, yeah, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
Judith brought some gospel songs to us as well, you know.
Study War No
Study War,
More,
all
Just
that
a Closer Walk with Thee.
Yes.
Bruce did The
Bong.
Water Is Wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
it was-
the next step was the boat trip, wasn't it? You took yourselves off to England, and that was a holiday, wasn't it? I mean,
well, you see, Athel had the account for the SS
I was
Sidmouth
at
line.
Clemenger in those days.
just up the road here.
That's right, and 1961, and I was the young TV media manager, fresh out of Channel 9 and Channel 7, and a couple of bebop groups with Keith and others before the Seekers came about, and we had a great relationship with the Sidmouth line, and they had us down a few times. We'd done myself and Keith and Bruce had done a cruise around the islands, just the three of us, which was great, and we did a couple of their shows when the ships came in from time to time. We'd be asked to go down and sing at their shows, and we met their VIPs. So we were just chatting with them. It was the Olympic Games year, and they had a couple of cruises planned. One cruise up front, then the trip to England, where they were going to drop us, then come back, and then pick us up next time round. Then the cruise to Tokyo for the Olympics, and another Pacific Island cruise. That was the year, and I worked it all out with them. Except when I went in to speak to the managing director, just like literally 2 weeks before we were to go, because we thought we were just going to do our folky stuff and have a lot of fun on the boat. You know, it sounded like a great idea. Cruise beforehand, then off we go. And I'm talking to Mr. Sitmar. I forget his second name. It doesn't matter. But say Fred
Mahalchik.
Sitmar, Frank Mahalchik, and the boss from Italy. And he said, "Oh, it was wonderful to have you on board." And you came to the big night.
It
You know,
sounds like a Jewish accent.
sorry about that. No, he was a Jewish Italian. He was a lovely man. And
A Jewish
he
Italian.
said,
Yes,
and
lovely. I love your music.
I could do it in Irish. Too, if you like another language.
still sound
I'm
Jewish.
multilingual. I can do it in Scottish.
Get
too, if
on
you
with
like.
the story.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And he said, and you'll play your lovely folk music in the afternoon, and then in the evening I'd like you to play folk music again after dinner, and then you'll play from 8 to 11 o'clock your lovely rock and roll. And fortunately, my mouth said yes before I put the brain into gear, and I had to come back and tell these three that we had to play rock and roll each night for about 3
I
hours.
didn't know any.
We ducks to water. Bruce got a set of drums. Judith was a lovely piano
I
player.
didn't play drums.
You did.
Yes, you did.
I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes.
How's your memory, mate? It's only 50
Yeah.
years.
Well, someone played drums.
I think it was you were the drummer.
No, I was
okay.
on the bass.
He had
And
electric bass. I had to get an electric
I had
bass.
electric bass.
So you had amps, and
yeah,
suddenly it was.
built a
Wasn't good.
set.
It wasn't good.
Can you
mate. I
remember any of
Baby
those?
Elephant
Walk
Walk.
Down
I got out
Walk
my
Down.
Albert's favourite songbook
Yeah.
because we had to play for barn dances in those days. So the crowd, so it was, gee, it's great after being like piano, you see. So. But astonishing. But great, Athel's I've got to be filled in. When did you come from Clemenger's to J. Walter Thompson? Because the magic is that we met in J. Walter Thompson on my first day working there. So you must have been in Clemenger's when you did the first things on the boats. But at
Yes,
some
and
point
I
you
went to
crossed...
Clemenger in between. Sorry, I went to J. Walter Thompson in between times.
Right.
And then I'd been with J. Walter Thompson for maybe 6 months.
Oh, okay. Well, you see,
when you came in.
Okay.
Yeah, so
This is
I'd bedded
great.
myself down
They're
on
still discovering.
Yeah.
Still discovering.
Yes, it's amazing.
Well,
You're digging deeply here.
Well,
boys.
here's the thing. They were employed. I actually got the sack from Clemenger's on Christmas Eve, just before we left.
It wasn't good.
Well, Peter Clemenger said, we weren't happy about me going out and singing at night.
Oh.
And I said, well, I actually do that to earn a living because you don't pay me enough to live on anyway, which was about £5 a week. And I thought it's a bit rich coming from the boss's son, you know. And anyway, I trudged home Christmas Eve. Like, that's really Scrooge-like, isn't it?
Oh,
and
Bruce,
all those years, and I
gosh.
felt shocking going home telling my mum I'd lost my job.
Oh, Bruce.
Anyway, and he said,
I'm
we're on
weeping
a
here
cruise.
for
I said, I'm free. Great. But all the years later, when I went back after the Seekers and saw Clemency, I started working as a freelance writer.
Yes.
Saw him in a corridor, and I said, didn't do too bad.
That's right. Keith, were you
I was
involved in the advertising
No,
industry?
I was lurking in the bowels of the ABC at up in Lonsdale Street. Yes, I was a radio producer at the ABC.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, working with Jim Gussie and the dance band, and Frank Thorne. Jim Gussie was in Sydney. Frank Thorne and the dance band here, and working with singers like Reg Gray and Joan Clark. Fantastic, and producing shows with Isidore Goodman, and I had a wonderful time. And in fact, it was using the ABC studios on a Sunday with one of the technicians there pirating on a Sunday that we all got round one microphone and recorded our first demos that led
Thanks
to our
the
first
ABC.
album.
Yeah.
When you
Thank
think that's
you.
one of the few times that the government money had gone into the arts.
Directly into the arts.
Yes.
So you get to England,
Yeah,
and then what happens?
Well, England, we had already sent some material out. You know, that aforementioned album that we recorded for W&G. We'd sent that and a Kinney of an In Melbourne Tonight show that we had done with Graham Kennedy.
Right.
And luckily for us, the great organisation to whom we'd sent the material had already started acting. They were impressed enough with what they'd seen. And Eddie Jarrett, who was an agent with the great organisation and had managed and worked on acts like Frank Highfield, etc., he'd already started working on getting us some gigs. So literally 2 days after we arrived in England, we were doing the Cliff Mitchell Moore Today Tonight show, or whatever it's called, and to 11 million people across the UK.
And there was a gig with Dusty Springfield.
That was not long after.
That was our first weekend concert. I remember it well.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was us, Dusty Springfield, and the great Italian tenor Tito Gobbi. How's that for a lineup?
And were you aware of Dusty's
Oh, totally.
Oh yeah,
work?
Yeah,
oh yeah,
very much.
you heard.
yeah, we were. And that
Oh, no,
was
we knew the Springfields
Blackpool.
worked very well.
That was in Blackpool, and that was our first introduction to an English boarding house. Where we went in there, and this was the digs for the weekend. And I remember saying to the landlady, where's the bathroom, love? She said, oh, well, if you want a bath, you catch 62 bus down to public bathhouse. There was no bathroom in the house.
But there was a bath lent up against the back fence.
At the back fence,
And you said, what's that doing there? They took the bathroom out to put in another room.
bed. A paying bed.
That's wonderful.
I should say you're listening to Conversation Hour and our special guest today, the Seekers, and it's wonderful to have all of them here. And my co-host is Brian Nankervis. I'm Bruce Guthrie. So what was the first big hit when what was the first one that really kind of broke you?
I'll Never Find Another You. It was written for us by Tom Springfield, of course, Dusty's brother.
Yeah.
The Springfields had broken up about 6 months before we arrived. And when Tom heard out, well, in fact, it was Eddie Jarrett who played Tom our tracks, and Tom was very inspired because he could hear the harmony sound, and he wrote the song with my voice in mind, and it was a #1 hit around the world, and 2 million copies were sold, and that's how history was made, really.
And off it went.
I think it's also important to know that that same gentleman, Eddie Jarrett, and Tom, didn't they actually put up some money to record it? Because no one else would.
They had the faith.
They had the faith to do it.
But he's a remarkable writer. I mean, he wrote the lyrics to The Carnival Is Over.
No,
Yeah.
the music.
Sorry, the music.
Yes, Jim
because
Da-
the lyrics is...
yeah. No, he
Carnival's
wrote,
over. Carnival's over. He wrote the lyrics
yes.
to it.
Yes, he did.
So-
He
'cause
wrote
it's
the
a
lyrics.
Russian...
Yeah, Russian
Russian
folk
folk song. Yes.
He wrote Georgia Girl, of course.
That's the one, lyrics were by Jim Dale, the
Dale
actor.
did the lyrics.
Right.
Yes.
And that was nominated for an Oscar, wasn't it?
It
Yes, it
was,
was.
yes,
Yep.
indeed.
But he produced. I mean, he was a really... Tom
Produced.
Springfield was a
Key.
really
Producer, writer.
Key
Yeah.
Key
important
person
part.
for us,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Without him, we wouldn't be who we are today, without a doubt.
No, he took us from the mode that we were in, fairly folky, bluesy, jazzy, gospely, and took us over the divide into the pop world with his understanding of the pop world and his capacity as a songwriter. And it was, I tend to think of what would have happened when he played us a song if we'd said, well, it sort of doesn't sound like us.
Yes.
There's a million mistakes made like that in the music business.
Were you
the years.
happy to have the gospel edges just left behind, or...?
Well, they weren't really left behind because the B-side was a gospel song, so we around the mark, we were able to, I wouldn't say bookends, but but right in the middle, the gospel song still stayed there, and off all our albums and everything else. And our wonderful fans and friends out there I guess they regard everything that we've recorded as a hit.
Yes,
and it's all an amalgam of the sound, and gives us leverage. We still encompass the lovely songs we started with to be reasonably contemporary with other things. But then the new recordings we've just done, In My Life, which was the Beatles song, and Silver Threads and Golden Needles, which of course Springfield's latched onto and made famous.
And you recorded at Abbey Road?
Yes, we did.
Was there any? Was there a Beatle wandering around? Or
saw them on the way to the cafeteria a couple of times.
Yeah, several cockroaches as well.
Judith spoke to one of them.
All those insects.
Well, I was playing the piano. I didn't exactly have the thrill of speaking to Paul McCartney, but I was playing Maple Leaf Rag in the downstairs studio where the Beatles recorded, and Paul McCartney and Peter Asher came in to listen to me play. So it was very thrilling, actually.
That's exciting.
We played on a concert. One of the biggest things for us, after I'll Never Find Another You as a hit, we then won the New Musical Express Award for the Best New Group internationally off their big, it's like sort of like an Oscar type thing in the music industry in those days. Huge number of acts on the show. And, of course, who was on the show? Well, start with the Beatles and the Stones and go right through the register of all the international stars at the time.
Animals,
and this little mob from Aussie were up there ready with a world of our own to come out, which we had our fingers crossed for. There was a lovely little story there in terms of the Beatles. We didn't sort of chat with them on the day. When John Lennon walked past our dressing room at one stage, and with the usual smile, went over to our manager who was just standing there. He said to our manager, Eddie, "They're not a bad little band, but they're all there to see us."
Now, it's often said that if you can remember the 60s, you weren't really there. Did you behave yourselves, during this period?
Yes.
Yeah, well, relative to the same, Bruce.
Next question.
Yes, that's right. I want lurid tales now. I don't know. What was it like, the 60s? To be a musician in London at the top of your game?
I think it was an amazing time creatively. Some of the best songs that any of us have ever heard were written during that period by the great songwriters, and I just remember, like every other day, a great record came out, didn't it? And it was all sorts of genres of music, and then suddenly there'd be a new Beatles single, or Eleanor Rigby was released, or paperback writing of The Who, and wow, what is going on here? It was an amazing city to live in. It was the centre of music and fashion, and it wasn't overly expensive to live in those days, was it?
We could get ourselves around easily.
We could,
The shame is that, you assume that atmosphere and that big mixed bag of music, you assume it's always going to be like that and just get better and better and better. But it didn't. This is the sad thing. Everything's become very demographic based, and you're supposed to have this particular age group listening to this kind of music. So it's divided everybody. Where back then there was a real unification of different generations.
Is that? Do you think, a result of a sort of corporate greed?
Without question. That's what's happened. Everything's just based on the bottom line of
shared
how to make the money out of it.
In those days, record companies actually believed in artists, and it wasn't a matter of doing one album. They would sign them to multiples, and they'd work with them and that just doesn't happen today.
But we also had some camaraderie in the television shows that we did, shows like Top of the Pops and Brian Matthews shows and things like that. There were some hit parade shows where those who were lucky enough to have some chart success, we could mix and mingle, and that was the way we generally mixed with our peers. Because I, for one, had most of my friends outside the music industry, and so consequently, I would use those the television shows or radio shows to meet other people of like mind.
Brian and I were talking just before you came in about the Myer Music Bowl concert. What year was that?
67.
67, 200,000. I was looking at footage of it last night, actually. You were a very handsome bunch. I mean,
you
looked
better
terrific.
believe it, brother.
You mean all
gorgeous.
200,000 of us?
And you know, you look great. I mean, you're a
Better
great
than the
looking
audience,
band.
I would suggest.
Yeah, much better than
a lot
the
of
audience.
blokes in shorts with
Yeah,
newspapers on their
Yeah,
heads.
Yeah.
Shorts and stubbies. Yeah, right.
But you were a great looking band. I
Well,
mean,
that's kind of...
Thank
yeah,
you.
We did a lot of television in the first 6 months that we were in England, and I think one of the reasons was because we looked... I think we did, in retrospect. We looked fine. We stood out enough musically, of course, and visually. And there were a couple of other groups who had been created at the time, or one before us, same sort of setup. Another one afterwards that Brian Epstein set up. To compete in the marketplace sort of against us, but
Who was that?
we were the ones in the pigeonhole for the combination of all those.
who was that?
All those
Ethel?
things. A group called the Silky.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, they
and the
disappeared.
Beatles.
Heard of them?
Well, they had
That worked well.
They had Beatles songs, and it
did.
went nowhere.
Wow.
Okay.
But we'll be taking everybody down memory lane with our concerts in May, of course.
Oh,
We've got
yeah.
some of the old footage, and we've done 2 new film clips with the 2 new tracks we've
So the
recorded.
concerts will involve...
Some big screen
Oh,
stuff.
so it's going
For
to
the first time, yes, we've never done it before.
Yeah.
Well, we should come back and talk about that.
On 774 ABC Melbourne.
I'll Never Find Another You, the 1964 song recorded at Abbey Road Studios, which we've already established
Absolutely, yep.
for the Seekers, and I think that was the first big hit, wasn't it?
First big hit. We recorded it on November the 4th. It was out on December the 4th, and then the following February the 15th, it went to number 1.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so our lives changed. That's February 65.
Courtesy of Pirate Radio, by the way.
Was it Pirate Radio?
Yeah, we were talking about the movie The Boat That Rocked,
Yeah.
which was great.
Very
funny,
entertaining, yeah.
But in fact, it's true that our record got broken on Pirate Radio because BBC wouldn't play it. And they were forced to, like a lot of other artists.
Yeah, we did live shows on BBC Radio singing our song, but they wouldn't play records.
No.
You went in and recorded.
Which is why all those great sessions are now on albums.
Yeah,
correct.
Well, ours are lurking there somewhere. I'm not sure where, but it'd be nice to get them
Gee,
all out.
wouldn't that be great?
Well, and it was great because we would record them the same way we used to, I think, in the studio. Literally go in and play live around microphone, maybe a couple of microphones. And their engineers, I think, were fantastic because I don't remember a time where we ever went, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound good. They actually got our sound in their studios, like the treble clef sound, I suppose.
Should be tracking those down, Brian.
Speaking of the sound, I mean, in a way, you think some of those early songs, the folk, it is tied in with America, but we really associate the Seekers with England and obviously Australia. But you did tour and play. I mean, Georgia Girl was a hit.
Huge.
In
Yeah,
America.
number one. Yeah,
How was
Mensa.
it, Judith, touring in America for the Seekers?
We were slightly late for it. There was a interesting transition because we had the huge big record number 1, especially just after the buzz of the movie coming out.
Yes.
The special version was recorded, which then became the single and went to number 1. We didn't actually get over there till about 5 or 6 months after. So we were playing the colleges, and of course, it was still been a huge success. But the maniac kind of period when Tom got over for the Oscars was absolutely unbelievable. Tom Springfield went over when the Oscars were happening.
Right.
So we were a little bit late to get there to have the.
Yeah, they would have loved to have had us.
We did a show in Albany, upstate New York, there, and our warm-up act was Neil Diamond.
Yeah, that's true.
He opened the show for
He
us.
did. He did.
And you gave him a few
He
tips on
just
that
had,
work.
he
But
just had
even-
his first hit, Solitary Man.
Solitary Man, yeah. He
That
wasn't
was the
happy.
beginning of
Yes.
that was the
He was not
beginning of
happy.
his career.
But even today, we get masses of emails from America.
Okay.
In fact, since yesterday, with our big 50th birthday celebration, we've now got our Facebook, and some of the comments already are from America. When are you
Great.
going to come and tour America?
And that's
Yeah.
a key reason that we're here at the moment, really. I mean, the internet's opened up, I don't say new career move, but I mean, it's put us in touch directly with all those people out there.
Yeah.
Immediately. And, one of the reasons why with this celebration we're just going to go out and do these shows because we know our audience is out there.
And
we
great.
have to tell them, of course. That's why we
We're here.
we want to give them the dates and everything. We want them to know, but they're there, and that's the reason we want to go out and and join forces with them again.
So we're getting text messages, Athel, sitting in the car having a little cry.
Oh,
Oh,
Says
it's not
one.
that bad, is it?
Yeah, I thought it was going quite well.
Swan Street traffic is really bad.
The Seekers remind me of my childhood, and especially my father he loved them. Thanks so much.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And
Nice.
we're getting lots and lots of those.
well, that's
Okay.
Well, please send our love back to them.
Yeah,
Would you consider another bowl concert, David wants to know? I was there in 1967 with my parents. I was 6.
6 years old. Goodness. Do you know, we met Clive Palmer not long ago, and he said he was 8 years old and he was underneath the table at Treble Clef with his parents, 8 years old.
Yeah.
That was practically the
wasn't
first
supposed to
time
be
we
there.
sang.
No.
It's brilliant,
He
isn't
wouldn't
it?
fit under the
Yes.
table now, of course.
And
The bowl's very different now, of course. Different configuration.
Yes.
You've got that ramp. You can only seat. Well, you can only seat. Can you seat 1,000? I don't think you can. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, you can see.
Oh, in the front seat.
In the
more
front
than that,
rows, and then
yeah.
you've got the grass, of course. But then maximum's probably what, about 12, 13,000?
Yeah.
Yes,
or
13,000 the limit now.
Yeah. So, but you wouldn't go back to try and repeat anything. I mean,
But we have clarified that it was 67.
67
Yes.
And also, most importantly, it wasn't a farewell
No.
concert.
No.
Some people think that.
No.
But there was a little farewelling a little bit after the bowl show where Judith left the group for a while. And
About 25 years.
And
for a short holiday.
You had things to do.
I have
did,
to
yeah.
say that
Yeah.
one of the great moments yesterday in the press launch was this sense of Bruce, saying that there was 25 years, I think, before you then reformed in 93, and there was a great sense of, I don't know if forgiveness is quite right, but you'd had a lot of years apart, and those 93 shows must have been very emotional.
They were. There's a particular moment where we did. The first show was in Melbourne, was it not?
Yeah.
Hamer Hall. And our producer, George Fairfax.
Oh, this is wonderful. Yeah, you learn things from these masters.
And we
wonderful.
wondered how to start the show.
Yeah.
And he said, all you do is walk out and stand there. And which is what we did. And how long did that go on for?
Oh, well, virtually every shaft.
No, I'm talking time. I think
time,
we probably
minutes.
stood there
No,
for
minutes.
5 minutes while they applauded.
Yeah.
Wow.
He said you've got to do that.
You've got to
because
do that.
If you don't, you'll rob them of the thing that they've come to give you, which is
Welcome
to welcome
back.
you back.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was so right.
Judith, I was watching the 60 Minutes report, which aired quite recently, and I seem to pick up in your recollection of 68 and the years immediately after that, looking back now, a tinge of regret at what had happened, or
Huge regret at the grief it caused the fans. I had no idea. I mean, back then I was out of touch in a way, because it wasn't like then now, because of course the internet means it's a very immediate connection with your fans. But I honestly thought, well, I didn't intend to join the group full time. That was never the thought when we left Australia. We came away for 10 weeks, as we were saying before. So I thought, we've had 4 years, and if I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids, I won't have time to sing anything else or do anything else, or who knows what's going to happen. So I was thinking, oh gosh, I've got to cram something in before life changes completely. So I just gave notice. We'd always said we'd give 6 months notice. I thought I've done the right thing. Didn't even cross my mind that people would start crying and stay crying for 25 years. So it was seriously, I was just completely ignorant and not understanding people. So that's the huge regret, that obviously it was very difficult to leave the security and the thrill of singing with a very successful group. It was fabulous. Who could ask for more, you would think?
Yeah.
But of course, me being so many styles of music that I loved, including, of course, I had the ambition maybe I would go into classical music or musical theatre.
And your jazz and your gospel.
I enjoyed the jazz, yes. So many styles of music. And I just thought, well, I'm going to do something of everything. So it was wonderful that, in a strange sort of way, my car accident in 1990 had some blessing in disguise about it, because it brought me into Melbourne by helicopter, admittedly, with injuries and everything. But it did actually plonk me here for quite a sizable time, which was just before our 25 years. So I got together with the boys to have
A
dinner.
hell of a connector.
Yeah,
but
we
it
just
worked.
all under...
Was that right?
Well, yeah, because
Yeah.
we all wanted off. I mean, bear in mind, we did a huge TV program for the BBC, which was our farewell show, where we were celebrating. We were saying we've had a great time, we had a fantastic pop career, and now we're all going to go off and do other things.
Do other things.
More than half our fans were as Judith
Devastated.
said, heartbroken.
Yeah.
And you're going, well, sorry, hang on a minute, it's our lives. I mean,
Yes.
you go, well, you make these decisions.
Well,
anyway, fate steps in and takes a hand. I'm a great fatalist, and I believe that a lot of what's happened to this group happens for reasons that we don't even have to discuss, because it's an inexact science, and we've been blessed in so many ways. And to be back here celebrating a 50th birthday together, and we understand that we're still the only band around from that time together in its original format, going out to play. And as I said before, we're so in touch with those fans out there through the internet that it's a bit of magic, It's such a great reason to go out and share all this with them.
Yes.
And if you hadn't taken those roads, maybe you wouldn't want to be still perforing together 50
true.
years
I
on.
think
So-
we'd be pretty bored if we'd been doing it
Oh, yeah.
constantly for 50 years. We're not at all
Enriching.
bored. So,
And you, Athel, you got involved in politics.
Absolutely.
And Bruce, you wrote I Am Australian with Dobe Newton.
Yep.
Later recorded by Judith and Mundaway.
Indeed,
Yanapingu.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, it's become absolutely the alternative national
A
anthem when you
wonderful
think about
anthem.
it.
And
absolutely.
Keith, and I found this out last night, I vaguely know this name, Frank Howson.
Frank Howson, yes,
You've
wonderful
collaborated.
Australian film director and screenplay writer, and
a poet.
Frank is also a poet. And so when he came back from America in 2005, he gave me a whole sheaf of his poems, and then I started putting his poems to music, and I've recorded several on my solo CDs. And so that's been a wonderful journey for me. But Frank also directed our most recent video clips. It's the first time we really put ourselves up to do a full-scale couple of video clips of the new songs, Silver Threads and Golden Needles and In My Life, and Frank directed those, and so it was great to be working with him. He's sort of part of the family, really.
In My Life, one of the two new recordings on the 50th anniversary album, which is out on sale and, as Keith has told us, is already in the top 20. And
Produced by local Michael Cristiano, who has a small sound plant, it's called, his studio. And we're absolutely indebted to him because he's really steeped himself in the original sound of the Seekers from those hits. So we feel those tracks can take their place alongside all the other 48 tracks on the album.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So it's a lovely version.
You were very clear about that. You wanted it to have that Seekers sound.
Michael, he's been with us live, many guises. The bottom line is he uses today's technology to get us sounding like we used to on the early acetates, which is very important, like In Your Lounge Room, like all those other beautiful original tracks were. So it's a good way of using today's technology, pull it all back to the valve sound almost.
But he's been part of our lives since our Silver Jubilee album. So literally 25 years of involvement with Michael. It's such a blessing. How on earth would you find someone who can do that? We're thrilled to bits. I mean, it was his mission as well to be as genuine as he could for the fans, to make us sound the genuine article.
The thing is, because you've got to do those things live in concert.
Yes.
I mean, the recordings for us have always got to be things you
can reproduce.
And we can. This concert series will be a little different and very exciting because we're bringing audio-visual components into the show, and there'll probably be a couple of stories told along the way. Because I think, as we were talking about, people do want to know this stuff,
the background,
and it is a retrospective in many ways. So
except
really,
for Bruce's sparkling new banjo, that's not retrospective.
back on the banjo again.
Back on the banjo.
Well, Keith plays banjo.
Yeah, I
of
can.
course,
I put mine away. Yes, it's. But good on you, Bruce. Thank you.
Good on you.
You're ever dueling banjo?
Dueling banjo.
No, we have.
I'll tell you what, I would pick up on that if there was a vote of confidence to have dueling banjos.
I
I'd
would
be
too.
I'd be a supporter. Absolutely.
These two boys in their prime, I'll tell you, rattling two banjos
Would be
together,
very
you wouldn't hear
slow
anything better.
bluegrass.
Yeah.
I could play tambourine in the background. I mean,
Indeed, played
but
in
of
the
course,
foreground.
Keith's iconic 12-string is very much part
Yes.
of the new track. So
Yeah.
absolutely
Now,
brilliant.
Of course, we're listening to the Seekers and the tour. I know that the Melbourne date is Tuesday the 14th of May
Yes.
Hamer Hall.
at Hamer Hall. Is there the prospect of more dates in Melbourne?
we
Could
can only
be.
tell
We'll
what
see how we
Bruce,
go.
I hate to tell you this, but it all depends on you.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think we
go
can,
for it.
We can probably count on at least a couple more shows.
We can't tell yet because the tickets are on sale on the 10th of December. So
Okay, that's right. They go on sale on Monday.
Yes,
Let's
yes,
say
indeed.
we're available for further requests.
And you tour nationally, right, Keith?
nationally, and we're talking to promoters in other territories as well.
Yeah.
So, but Australia we're concentrating on right now. It's a national tour.
And are you busy rehearsing? I mean, do you
Not yet, but
We will
be.
Yeah.
You will.
We're busy
Yeah.
going viral at the moment. And I don't know what that word means, but it sounds sensational.
You don't look well either.
Well, like I've never known to be viral and feeling so damn good. Yeah.
But the shows will really be a celebration of
absolutely.
Very much so.
the 50 years.
Well, we started yesterday
Yeah, we
with
did.
our
Great
celebration,
start.
and it'll just carry on. And a more serious answer to your question about rehearsing, Bruce, we constantly keep in touch anyway, and the main rehearsals will actually take place probably the month before we start the tour, because there's a lot of stuff to coordinate, like Bruce was saying, with the audio visual and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll get it all together.
And who writes the set list?
God. We go back.
Collective wisdom there.
Collective. We go back over. Keith is our magpie. He keeps all the old set lists because
lists.
we never remember them.
Right.
And we work off that to a certain extent because there are clusters of songs that work
Yeah.
Go
beautifully
together.
together.
Yes.
Generally
You
try
know?
and build up to a finale. But I think,
Shall I?
remember, there were
Yeah.
26 or 27 songs in the
In the
combined
two-
set list. Yeah,
the 2
I'm
hours?
going to
a lot of
share-
singing.
Yeah.
I'm going to share my latest technique for set lists.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought of it 50 years ago.
What is it?
It is fantastic. You have to buy yellow post-it notes, as you know, the sticky.
Yeah.
But the trick is overlap them, like stick them all down a page, but overlap them so the bottom bit's what's visible. So you can imagine what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the bottom of each little overlap post-it note is the name of the song. So you think, I think I want the carnival is over there. No, I think I'll put it at the end. So you just pick up your yellow post-it note and you put it in the other corner.
Genius.
Why did we not think
Genius.
of that?
Isn't that brilliant?
Absolutely genius, and that's a free plug for post-it notes.
It's
The ABC is going to be in real
spreadsheet.
trouble.
Durham
It's
method.
unbelievable. Then you can photocopy the page of all your little post-it notes before they fall off,
That's right.
and you've got it.
And it'll come
So-
out with her latest songbook.
Yes, exactly.
So the album's out. Great
Yes.
Christmas present.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
brilliant.
Tickets for the concerts go on sale from Monday. And
They're also Christmas presents.
Yes, Art Centre, Hamer Hall on the 14th of May. We've got to start wrapping up. It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank
and an
you.
honour
Thank you.
Thank
to
you,
meet
Bruce.
you all.
Yeah,
Athol Guy, Bruce Woodley, Judith Durham, Keith Potka. The Seekers, 50 years on and still going strong, and it's a fantastic achievement. If we normally took calls during conversation hour, we could have just swamped the airways with calls. There's so many people ringing in saying how much they love you and how much they're looking forward to the concert series. My co-host,
Brian, thank
Brian
you.
Brian,
Davis from
thank
Rock
you.
Quiz.
Thank you,
Brian.
Thanks for all
Thanks,
your
Brian.
help.
Thanks,
It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Bruce Guthrie.
You're listening to 774 ABC Melbourne. Broadcasting online at abc.net.au/Melbourne and on your radio 774 ABC Melbourne.